position. We are less than 3 weeks away from the 2018 NFL Draft, and we have more NFL depth charts to dissect on today's show. We're going to take a look at several key young players from the AFC East and the NFC East to help you figure out how they apply to their respective teams and their positions as Ourlads Guide to the 2018 NFL Draft with Dan Shonka on the Ourlads Football Radio Network starts now. All right, it's Friday, April 6th, 2018. I'm Greg DePalma. You're listening to the Ourlads Football Radio Network with Ourlads GM and National Scout Dan Shonka, where it's never too early to think about the NFL Draft. So, Dan, the draft guide is complete, ready to hit the mailboxes all over the world any day now. How's that feel?
Well, it's good that, get the fans got 3 weeks to look it over. We even got in the trade. We were at press the other night when the trade came down with Cooks going out to Los Angeles and everything. So, of course, naturally that screws up a whole mock draft, but we were able to put the trade in there and lock in some people, for that particular part of it. But no, it's about as up-to-date as you can get for a hard copy in a very volatile world.
Well, they love the profiles and the scouting reports. That's what it's all about, and that's what the internet too is for. That's the great combination. We provide this show, and of course all of the different links on the site and the different pages that you provide when there are up-to-date stories and things of that nature that need to be addressed. So these are things that we'll be on top of as we get closer all the way through to the draft, and we'll talk more about our programming schedule and such in the coming weeks. Let you know what we're going to be doing for the draft. We'll have our mock draft, our first mock draft show next week. We'll have our last mock draft the week of the draft, so we still have a long way to go as far as content here, even on this show. So let's get started on finalizing the shows that we've been doing for the past couple of months. The final division, the two divisions, the AFC East, the NFC East. What we wanted to do, everybody's getting out there mock drafts, and they all want to have fun with it and try to figure out how players fit in to specific teams in their depth charts. So we took, we grabbed a player pretty much from every team, and this week it's the East. So we've got 8 teams. We're starting the AFC East, and Buffalo is a team that everybody believes is going to want to move up. They've been accumulating these picks since the beginning of last season to try to see if they can get one of these quarterbacks. So they did go out and get A.J. McCarron. And, we've seen McCarron play just a little bit. We saw him play in the playoffs. He was a two-time championship quarterback at Alabama. So the question I would pose to you regarding McCarron is, would you still mortgage a lot of picks, which Buffalo is probably going to have to do to go up into probably the top 5 to get one of those quarterbacks? Or would you hold on, maybe take one of the second-tier quarterbacks because you feel that maybe McCarron has got something that maybe he could give you and then use all your other picks for a whole bunch of other needs?
Well, I think that McCarron can hold the fort down while one of the picks is going to be, develop. And, I tell you, they very well could set right there and get at 12 and get somebody that falls through the bottom of the barrel here. But with the Jets up there looking for quarterbacks and Cleveland looking for a quarterback, maybe Denver, I think that
maybe Miami.
Miami could be in that mix.
Yeah.
And, but, some people may be of sound mind and maybe not take one of those quarterbacks that, is questionable. But
true, you
also
never know.
Rudolph could be sitting there for him. And if they like Rudolph, he could be sitting there at 12. So
what would you rather do? What would you rather do? Knowing McCarron, do you think McCarron is just like he's just a younger version of a Josh McCown? Or do you think, you know what? Who knows? Maybe in the right system, he could be a starter in this league.
Yeah. I think that's true with a lot of, not a ton of quarterbacks, but certainly other positions. But, I think that, hey, the way that you find out is
That's right.
he was the little bit that he had played during the playoffs at Cincinnati. He did some good things.
Sure.
So I think that it's a cold weather team. He's not. I guess he's used to Cincinnati weather, but he's not used to Buffalo weather yet. But I think that he'll be acceptable until we see who they draft and how they develop.
Does that mean that you think that if they did get one of the top four quarterbacks, Josh Allen might be the best fit there because of used to dealing with the weather and his strong arm?
Well, like I said, I'm not a big, as everybody knows by now, we're not big Josh Allen fans. So I don't care where Josh Allen goes. I don't know if he's, I just think he's a long way away from getting on the field if he ever does successfully. So I think, he's going to get thrown in there somewhere and somebody's going to play him. But I just, he's a California kid, though, too, even though he's a Wyoming guy. So I guess, he's got about as much warm weather or cold weather experience as about any of them.
Okay. Miami's next, and the Dolphins used a couple of picks last year. Over the last few years, that they've gotten younger there. Howard, Tankersley. Do you think that they should feel comfortable because every team now needs 3 starting caliber corners? Do you think that they've got 2 of them now with Howard or Tankersley? Would you feel comfortable with them 2 out of 3, or you're still not comfortable with either one of them?
Well, I think they still need to get another one in there. Now, Bobby McClain has done some things for him at nickel, and Lippett's developed since he's been a wide receiver at Michigan State. But I think they like him. I think they like Lippett. He did some good things late, but no, I think they definitely are going to be looking for a corner, but most likely, in the second, third round.
Are you sold on Tankersley?
Well, he's only got 1 year under his belt,
mm-hmm.
So he's got a ways to go, but he does have a chance to do some things. I think Howard showed some good things, and they dramatically change from 1 year to another. So
okay. Let's go to New England, and with Solder gone now, it's possible that Garcia could end up as their starting left tackle. Now, he didn't even play last year. So do you think the Patriots are going to feel comfortable with that, or do you think that one of their early picks will wind up being another tackle?
Well, I think that McGlinchey should be there, okay, at 23 and be a right tackle for him. I don't think there's really a left tackle in this group, but I think that he very well could be there if they're going to go for one of those tackles. And they may be able to. They could probably get Colton Miller even later. It depends on who they like the best. But I think they're going to take one of those linemen. I think it's kind of nonsense right now packaging everything going up for a quarterback. I don't think they'll do that.
Now, you thought Garcia was a developmental player when he came out, and again, he's had a year. So did your gut tell you that based on what you know from him, that okay, yeah, Patriots probably are going to go into the season with him at left tackle, and he could be okay?
No, I think they're probably going to go to Waddle.
Okay.
Right now is what my understanding. And he's he's going to set the world on fire, but no. Garcia's got some talent, but since he was out all last year, it was kind of a wasted year in regards to development for him. So his rookie year will really be this year.
Okay. Let's go to the Jets, and injury problem with them as well with their tight end, Leggett. And that's why Severian Jenkins had a comeback year, but the Jets let him go to Tampa. Didn't want to, even though it's just a couple million, didn't want to overpay for him. Why not? We have Leggett. We like Leggett. So should the Jets feel comfortable with Leggett early in the draft process? Maybe later on they can go. It's a deep tight end class, but no reason to think that the Jets should go after one of those top tight ends as long as they got Leggett, correct?
Right, and they signed Walford from Oakland, and then they picked up Bucky Hodges, who is a terrific athlete, and everything, but he always thought he was a wide receiver and not a tight end, and so they made some nice pickups, and hey, if Hodges develops, and then Walford had some pretty good games at Oakland, so they've kind of picked up some help there for Leggett in case he falls or gets hurt.
All right, let's go to the NFC East. The Cowboys spent 4 of their draft picks last year on DBs to go along with a couple of guys that were considered, 2 of their top DBs, Brown and Jones. Do you think they're set then? Based on those guys who they took last year, do you think that you'd be really surprised if the Cowboys used any of their early picks on a defensive back?
Well, I don't think they'll take anybody early, but I still think, Jordan Lewis is a little guy and Anthony Brown's a little guy. And if you want bigger corners, you're going to be looking around. They brought in Marquez White, of course, and then Awazu, who did some good things. The safety, Xavier Woods, showed some ability and things. Yeah. And, but Byron Jones hadn't really stepped up to the plate to, be that big time free safety yet. But, I don't think, although they could change gears, but they need some more help, across the board in the front of the defense.
All right, with the Giants now, you would think that if the Browns go after a quarterback, that the Giants go after Barkley, even though there are still a lot of people who believe they're going to potentially take a quarterback. So, what would you feel more confident? Taking Barkley because your next best young guy is Gallman, and let's just take out of the equation. I know how much you love Barkley, and you should, but let's just take into the equation that you need either a quarterback or a running back here. Or would you feel more confident knowing, hey, you know what? I think Davis Webb. I have more confidence that Davis Webb might be able to turn. I think that new coaching staff can maybe turn Davis Webb into a starter. I'm not taking one of these quarterbacks that I don't trust. I'm definitely going after Barkley because there's a big gap between Barkley and say Wayne Gallman.
Well, there's a huge difference. Now they brought in Stewart, who he's got a lot of tread, off the tire right now, and but I tell you what, I don't think Dave will take a quarterback, but I could be wrong. I mean, Pat Schumer's there now, and if Pat Schumer can sell Dave and say that one of these guys can be, I'd be stunned, because I don't have faith in at least 2 of those guys for sure that are getting talked about up there. Yeah. And, with Allen and Darnold, I mean, I don't know. Like I said, I'll be real anxious to see what they do. But,
I know he played in that air raid offense, Webb. But but your scouting report on him last year, and from what of course when you watch him play in college, I mean he's got stuff. It looks like you could work with, and if Shermer could coach up, if Shermer can coach up Keenum, then why can't he coach up Davis Webb?
That's exactly what he's got to do, because Webb's an accurate guy, and he's got good size, and he broke a lot of Goff's records at Cal.
All right, that's another reason why I think we both agree Barkley makes a whole lot of sense with the Giants. So if the Browns want him, they better take him first. Eagles. Now, Sidney Jones was a cornerback that they drafted last year that did not play much. Of course, he had that injury. We all knew they wasn't going to get much playing time early on. What should the Eagles fans expect from him in year 2?
Well, I think that he got a little playing time late in the year. Mm-hmm. Came back and had a little taste of it, and so I think that he's very well thought of. And if he's 100%, I mean they've got some good young cornerbacks there. Douglas did some good things in nickel, and Jalen Mills, who we liked 2 years ago, and he goes in the 7th round, has been starting for him.
Yep.
And, I think Sidney Jones will be competing with Mills. And, actually the guy that's probably played the worst for him is the guy they brought in a trade, Ronald Darby.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. I mean,
and then they got Worley, they brought him in because he was in a different scheme there at Carolina, but he was brought in. He's a big corner, so I think that if these guys develop, they have a chance to do something back there, and they even have some depth.
And they got Douglas too, who played pretty well. So maybe the young guys, actually Douglas and potentially Jones as well as Mills, that might be the future.
Yep, exactly.
Okay. And finally, Washington. They let Fuller go in the trade with Kansas City at corner. Long gone to the Jets along the offensive line. So do you think Roulier, do you think he could end up being a good starting center this year or down the road for Washington, that they shouldn't worry about that position in the draft? And the same for Fabian Moreau. We talked a lot about him last year. Moreau now, he moves up on the depth chart possibly with Fuller gone. So do you think those are two positions that Redskin fans shouldn't be overly concerned with, cornerback and center?
Well, until the guys get on the field and do it. But, they signed Skandrick, too, as a cap casualty out of Dallas. And Skandrick, maybe his best years are behind him.
Yep.
But,
yep.
I think that if nothing else, he could certainly be their nickel, and then Moreau move up. And maybe Josh Norman's best years maybe behind him too. But I think they're going to be, looking for the best defensive tackle or whatever they can get, and maybe Payne or what have you if he's still there, because Stacey McGee is a guy that's really covers up two positions, as does Hood. So they probably need a little more depth in that defensive front. So. But I think that it wouldn't shock me though if they brought in another corner.
All right, now the mock draft contest is still going on. It's going to go on all the way through till draft night, I guess, right? So,
yep.
And that's what is it, $600 prize? Is that what it is?
$500.
$500.
Yep. $500.
Yep. Don't want to take an extra $100 out of my paycheck. So that's available, and of course it makes it a lot easier because it's 7 rounds, right? So.
Yep.
And they're gonna, so when they get it'd be a lot easier for them to fill it out when they get their guides. So they got to get the guide, go in and enter the draft contest. You've got the newsletter coming out next, right?
Right. That I tell you, a lot of people like that because it's got the draft board in that, and then each team's individual draft in there, and then we got our intriguing prospects, and then we call it our Laddie Awards that go to the combine king at each position, and the fastest corner, or the fastest guy at each position, and just a variety of awards by position.
All right, and then again next week when we talk, we're going to be talking our own mock draft here on the show. Looking forward to doing that. So Dan, appreciate your time as always. Got a lot of work to do before the weekend, of course, getting those guides out. So we look forward to talking some mock draft with you next week.
Thanks for being, Greg. Great being with you.
Thanks,
so
Dan.
Long now.
Thanks, Dan. All right, that's Dan Shonka. And again, next week it's our first mock draft show. And then we are going to, in between the show, the 2 mock drafts, we'll have an update as far as take a look at the guide and the rankings and go over all of that because I got to get myself a guide. So once I get the guide in and I've done my research and gone over a whole bunch of stuff to ask Dan in a couple of weeks, we'll do that. But we'll have our mock draft next week, and then we'll have our final mock draft in a few weeks after that. So still a few mock drafts to go. We've got the mock drafts on the website. I'll be putting some mock draft reports as well regarding all the information that I've been able to compile from all the teams. We're talking salary cap information, components that have to go into that. Injuries, all sorts of roster updates with free agency and everything. So that's what goes into, and that's what should go into putting together a really concise mock draft report. So we'll be going over all that stuff, including, of course, draft coverage. So we'll let you know more about our draft coverage, live shows, and then post-draft shows. We'll let you know all about those scheduling components in the next probably week or so. All right, so for Dan Shonka, I'm Greg DePalma. Thanks for tuning in to Ourlads Guide to the 2018 NFL Draft on the Ourlads Football Radio Network. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter at PrimeSN, and we'll see you again next time. And again, mock draft next time, right here on the Ourlads Football Radio Network.